Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we take critical sources and research and, well, we turn them into the essential knowledge you need to stay informed, and hopefully we find a few surprises along the way.
Today we're doing something a little different. We're doing a deep dive into a recent sermon series called Zion Recap. And we're focusing on the very first message from Pastor Roy at Zion CC.
Yeah, and our mission today is really centered on Scripture, specifically Acts chapter 17, but the application is, it's incredibly modern.
It really is.
We're going to try to distill what true spiritual open-mindedness even looks like. And this isn't just about being tolerant, it's about a scriptural call to humility.
Right, and how to approach beliefs that challenge you with what the sermon calls a noble demeanor, and maybe most importantly, how to fact-check your own faith.
Okay, so the starting point, as you said, is Acts 17. Set the scene for us.
Well, the Apostle Paul and Silas, they've just come from Thessalonica where they faced some pretty violent resistance. It got so bad the believers basically had to sneak them out of town at night.
So they send them south to a town called Berea.
Exactly. And the Bible immediately makes this huge distinction. In Acts 17, verses 10 through 12, it describes the people in Berea as being more open-minded than the ones in Thessalonica.
And that phrase, more open-minded, that's the whole hinge for this sermon, isn't it?
It's everything. But before we even get into what that means, Pastor Roy spent some time reminding us of Paul's mission in the first place.
Which wasn't what we usually think.
No. He wasn't initially out there trying to convert Gentiles. He was a Jewish teacher, preaching to his own Jewish people about the Jewish Messiah, Jesus.
I think we often miss that context. We kind of project ourselves into the center of the story and assume, oh yeah, God's plan was always about me.
We do. We have this kind of historical myopia. And the sermon really puts that arrogance in check, because for those of us who aren't Jewish believers, our inclusion is just this stunning act of grace.
We were, for lack of a better term, the spiritual outsiders.
Totally. Our access to salvation is 100% through Jesus' sacrifice. It's a really powerful way to start, because if you approach this with any sense of spiritual superiority, you've already missed the point.
So that immediately sets the stage for humility. Paul goes to the Bereans for a reason, because they had this characteristic that the Thessalonians didn't.
Right, and it all starts with just a willingness to hear the message about Jesus. In Thessalonica, the opposition just immediately formed a mob. It was all fueled by lies and, frankly, rage. The Bereans just chose a different path.
But this isn't about just sitting back and passively listening, right?
Yeah.
The sermon was really clear that hearing is tied to some intense personal accountability.
Oh, absolutely. The source material is emphatic that every single listener is responsible for rigorously sifting for truth. You have a mandate to fact-check what you're hearing against Scripture.
You're accountable for verifying it.
You are, and that's heavy. That's why Pastor Roy brought up that really solemn warning from Galatians 1, verse 8.
Where Paul says, a curse falls on anyone, even an angel from heaven, if they preach a different gospel.
It's a completely non-negotiable standard. And, for a deep dive like this, we have to define what a different gospel even is.
It's usually when people try to add things to it, right?
Exactly. They try to add requirements to salvation, like you need certain rituals, or you have to have a certain political affiliation. Or, on the flip side, they try to remove the essential part, which is Christ's atonement.
So, okay, if the standard is that serious, let's nail down the core message. What's the non-negotiable definition that Paul was delivering?
The plumb line is Acts 4, verse 12. There is salvation in no one else. God has given no other name under heaven by which we must be saved.
That's it.
That's it. And that clarity is why the Bereans could do what they did. They could search their own scriptures every day to see if what Paul was saying was actually true.
Okay, so let's get to the central theme here, which is open-mindedness. Because today, if I say I'm open-minded, what I usually mean is I'll agree with whatever you say so we don't have a fight.
And that is the exact trap the sermon warns us about. Biblical open-mindedness. In this context, it has nothing to do with agreement or tolerating every conflicting truth claim.
So what is it?
It means nobility.
Nobility. Okay, unpack that for me.
The Bereans had this civil, this regal, almost royal demeanor when they engaged with Paul's ideas.
So nobility in an argument, that sounds, that's a radical idea in today's world, especially when you're talking about faith.
It changes the entire ethical framework for how you have a discussion. So when you run into someone who disagrees with a core truth you hold, your response has to reflect that nobility.
Which means no name calling.
No name calling, no personal attacks, no aggressive judgment. It means how you come across, whether it's at work or, in a comment on social media, has to be civil and measured and respectful.
So you can have the absolute truth, but if you deliver it with a nasty spirit, you're actually undermining the message.
Precisely. And that nobility, as the sermon makes so clear, is rooted structurally in profound humility. You can't have one without the other.
Because without humility, you immediately fall into that trap from 1 Corinthians 10:12. If you think you are standing strong, be careful not to fall.
Yeah, the second you feel spiritually puffed up, that's when you're most vulnerable. The real danger here is self-reliance.
Which is where Proverbs 3, verse 5 comes in.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. We just assume our perception is correct because, well, we're the ones perceiving it.
And we mistake our gut reaction for divine guidance. Pastor Roy told this story that just perfectly drove home how fallible our own sight really
It
is.
was a great story. He's at a family party, right? And he sees this big dog, a really nervous, energetic dog, and it's just losing control.
And it looks like someone's failing to restrain it.
Yeah, it looks like a woman can't hold it back. And he sees kids scattering, and his perception, his immediate gut feeling is, those children are in a mortal danger.
So, running purely on his own understanding.
He just charges across the yard, ready to physically get involved, ready to threaten this dog's life to save the kids.
But that's not what was happening.
Not at all. As he gets closer, his vision clears. And the woman struggling with the dog is actually this tiny little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
And she's terrified, not of her dog, but of this, as he put it, this 250-pound gorilla running straight at her, threatening her pet.
So his self-reliance, his own gut feeling, actually made him the source of the trauma.
Exactly. He wasn't the hero saving the day. He was the monster terrifying a child. And that's such a powerful illustration. If we can even trust our own sight in a simple backyard scenario, why on earth would we trust it when we're judging the complex spiritual state of another person?
It's a huge wake-up call to self-evaluation, which brings us to the right measuring stick.
Right? And Romans 12, verse 3 gives us that guide. Don't think you are better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourself, measuring yourself by the faith God has given us.
So the true measure isn't our external actions, like how many Bible verses we've memorized. It's the quality of our faith in God.
Exactly. And the measure of your faith is revealed in your obedience, especially when it's hard. If you're just cherry-picking which commands to follow, then your trust, and therefore your measure of faith is, well, it's compromised.
And this goes right at the danger of relying on our works, our performance for our status.
It does. The sermon brought up this powerful juxtaposition in Scripture.
Mm-hmm.
In Matthew 7, Jesus warns that on Judgment Day, people are going to come to him pointing to their amazing works.
We prophesied, we performed miracles, we cast out demons in your name.
And Jesus will say, I never knew you, you who break God's laws. All those impressive accomplishments are meaningless if they're paired with willful disobedience and, crucially, spiritual arrogance.
Because, as he says in John 10, his sheep listen to his voice and follow him. It's about the relationship, not the religious resume.
And nothing illustrates this better than the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector in Luke 18.
Which was aimed squarely at people who trusted their own righteousness and looked down on everyone else.
Yeah, the Pharisee stands up and basically prays his spiritual CV out loud. You know, I fast twice a week, I tithe, and thank God I'm not like that sinner over there. He used his good works as a club to judge someone else.
And meanwhile, the tax collector can't even look up. He's just beating his chest saying, God be merciful to me, a sinner.
And the punchline is just shocking to that whole worldview. Jesus says the tax collector went home justified before God, but the Pharisee did not.
So his fasting and his tithing, they didn't cover the sin of his prideful judgment.
That internal self-exaltation just canceled out all the external devotion. And that's why humility is the absolute non-negotiable for that Berean nobility.
It really shifts the focus from judging someone's external performance to examining our own internal heart condition.
And that leads to how we influence people. Pastor Roy stressed that vulnerability is key.
Right, confession, showing people your scars.
Yeah. It carries a spiritual weight that just giving information doesn't have. If you just go up to someone and say, that's a sin, that just puts them on the defensive.
But if you share your own struggle, your own imperfection, that has a much deeper influence.
And we need that vulnerability because, let's be honest, we just don't have the whole story on anyone, not even ourselves.
Isaiah 55, right? God's ways and thoughts are infinitely higher than ours.
It's the ultimate reset button. He told another great personal story here about when he was dating his wife, Sarah.
Okay.
So early on, he was changing a lot about his life, dressing differently, trying to learn Spanish, and a well-meaning leader in their church saw this.
She didn't like it.
She pulled Sarah aside and tried to warn her off, basically saying, "Not him, girl, not him."
From her human perspective, she was just judging the present, incomplete version of him. She was kind of right that he wasn't him yet.
Exactly. But God could already see the future transformation that she couldn't perceive at all. And that's the application. We can't look at anyone and declare them out of reach because we're only seeing this puzzling reflection in a mirror.
Even the Apostle Paul admitted that. 1 Corinthians 13:12.
He says, "Now we see things imperfectly. All that I know now is partial and incomplete."
And if Paul, who got direct revelation, felt he only had partial sight, then we have absolutely zero standing to make definitive, prideful statements about anyone else's spiritual future.
Transformation is God's work. It's not ours. Our job is just humble obedience and that noble interaction. That's the essence of the Berean attitude.
So we have the manual, we have the source of truth, but that doesn't give us a license to yell or rage at people.
And not at all. It should actually make us calmer. Think of a soccer referee.
Okay.
He has the rule book, he has the whistle, he has the authority. When the players are screaming at him, he doesn't drop the whistle and start screaming back and calling them names.
He just stays composed because he trusts the rules.
We have to trust the truth of the gospel in the same way.
So as you reflect on all this from the Zion recap sermon, here's the final provocative thought to take with you. It's from John chapter 9, verse 41. Jesus said, "If you were blind, you wouldn't be guilty, but you remain guilty because you claim you can see."
And that's the challenge. Where in your life are you claiming you have perfect spiritual sight? Where are you judging others pridefully, all while being completely blind to the arrogance in your own heart?
It's a vital question. And for those of you who want to dive deeper, this was just part 1 of the Zion recap. He goes into a lot more on listening eagerly and searching scripture.
Yeah, if you want to hear the entire sermon and the rest of the series, you can just head over to the Zion CC YouTube page.
Thank you so much for joining us for the deep dive. We'll catch you next time.